So if those are you who are watching and listening on LinkedIn, I am waiting to go live. We are live. Hello,
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Of course, this is Coach to Coach with Laura Van Russo and Dr. Keith McNally. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
Very well. How are you, Keith?
I'm doing pretty good. And so gosh, this year is almost half over. Like we're like towards the end of June. And I know people say that all the time, this year's going by so quick, but to be quite honest, it is, my daughter just completed seventh grade. So we're in summer school.
Wonderful.
We're not in
Yeah.
summer school, we're in summer break.
Mhm.
And so lots of things going on. July 4th is around the corner. And before you know it, August and then September, and I'm rushing my life too quick. But we're not here to talk about my life, Laura. We're here to talk about coaching. And so today's topic is really, really interesting. I think we're going to talk about, we're going to compare some aspects of coaching with aspects of, excuse me, of being a consultant and really the value of both from, the individual and from the corporation. So,
Mhm.
Laura, let me ask you a question. Let me get started.
Okay.
What is what's the difference between, let me start here. The basic question is, what's the difference between coaching services and consulting services? How do we
Well,
differentiate the two?
I think of coaching and consulting as very similar. It depends on how the organization wants to use you.
Okay.
So, for example, if I think of consultancy work, for example, when I was a New York State advocate for people with disabilities, organizations that wanted to create more inclusive hiring practices and accommodate and attract people with physical disabilities as job candidates would call on our agency. At that time, I worked for a nonprofit, which was part of New York State, and they would ask us to come in and meet with them and give them some information about the Americans with Disabilities Act, what a reasonable accommodation really means, what it entails to implement it, and I would give them that advice, that information, and sort of quote and also demystify the laws. So that's what I did as a consultant. But as a coach, coaching is more of it can be either individualized, as in a certain department of people from the organization may want your help if they are tasked with the responsibility of speaking. For example, Cornell University's health and nutrition program. Everyone there spoke English very well, but they wanted to gain more confidence when they were doing their presentations, and they also wanted coaching to better understand the cultural differences between those students that they were dealing with and their own understanding. And we go through that too. And you don't have to be a professional who speaks a second language. So there's that generational divide that we all say, oh, we'll always understand our youth. And we can be very compassionate and empathetic, but the bottom line is, our parents probably didn't understand us all the time. So it's very reasonable to think that we would not always understand our youth. And so they would need communication skills to manage classrooms, to de-escalate possible arguments, and to respond to disrespectful behaviors. And also on the positive side, they might want coaching to draw the shyer kids out, the quieter kids who had a lot to say, but maybe were too shy to participate. So those were the communication skills and cultural awareness training sessions that I provided for them.
I do
Um,
like that. And so what I'm hearing is that as a consultant, you come in with uh, a level of expertise and a level of knowledge that you are imparting on your client, whether they be an individual or organization, that you are the expert here, and you're going to help whoever it is kind of reach a new level of understanding or change policy or do something that's going to be different that will impact their organization in a positive way.
Mhm.
But as a coach, it sounds more client driven. And so you're really kind of engaging with the client, finding out where they want to go and really facilitating the change, but not being the expert of the change. And so am
Mm,
I kind of on target
well,
here?
close enough. I'm still the expert of the change because I'm identifying the pain points along with the client. So, for example, pain points for the professionals that I serve have a pattern. They generally are about um, anxiety around pronunciation, anxiety around public speaking, anxiety around cultural differences, like
Mm,
knowing that it's okay to make eye contact. I mean, a lot of Asian students were not raised to look directly at you. That's a sign of disrespect in
mm,
their culture. So I am an expert in the sense that, yes, I understand those pain points and those patterns of pain points that many, not all, but many of my clients share. And in terms of the niche coaching, that is especially an expertise sort of position because each niche coach is very well versed in their community that they want to serve, their specific community. So I have colleagues, for example, who are coaches for fashion designers, and maybe they know about fashion design, so they're familiar with that language, and they may have some familiarity with the challenges that that community of fashion designers struggle with. My area of expertise, and I say this, I am an expert in DEI because number one, I've lived it as a person with a disability, as a woman, and also as an established educator of 15 plus years of people who speak English as a second language. So I'm familiar with diversity, equity, and inclusion and the barriers that are there. But I still have a high degree of humility because, as we discussed in the beginning when we first met, even the best coach who provides that individual service, they offer that expertise, that familiarity with the community that they serve and their knowledge and their skills, but they're also engaging in active listening and astute and very focused observation of people, because that gives you the feedback of what your client is telling you. For example, and I'll be after that, I'll
no, you're
finally,
doing good.
I haven't changed yet, still talking away, but this is really important. Um, for example, I've gone into organizations and the administration as a coach, and the organization will say, these professionals that work with us, we love them, they're fantastic, but we need you to help them with their willingness to speak English more often than when they're speaking their home language, right?
Mhm.
And then this is when I was a really new coach, like 2 years ago. And I said, okay, guys, your admin is saying they want to encourage you to speak more English and less of your home language during the workday. And these professionals did not miss a beat. They said, listen, we only speak our home language during our lunch times, during our breaks. It's just a social thing for us. And when we are working, we're speaking English. When we go in and do our presentations for whomever we are trying to help or support, we speak English. So whatever they told you is a misunderstanding, right? So as the coach, as opposed to the consultant. And consultants generally are dealing with the administration first and foremost, and eventually, hopefully, the staff. Okay. But as a coach, you can focus more directly on the staff and you sort of get permission to work with them through the administration. Does that make sense?
It
So,
does. Well, now that you've raised this story up, what was the solution? How did you then go back to the administrators and say, or what could have you possibly have said now
Right.
knowing their perspective, the perspective of your client?
Well, I believe in being, how can I say this? I believe in assessment and open communication. So before you begin your work with me, for example, if it was an organization, for example, but even the individual, if it was a one-on-one,
Mm.
I provide you with a questionnaire. And those questions say, what are your main pain points? What is it about English for me as a communication coach? Because there's a million other type of coaches, but for me, English communication. And they will list what those pain points are. So I'll know going in. When I was in that situation, when I was just first starting out, what I did was I went back to the administration and I said, I really respect your point of view about what you're saying and what your frustrations are, but I'm just letting you know that your staff is sharing with me that that's not necessarily an issue. So can you give me a specific example when they would need to speak English more often? For example, are you really saying not so much that you want them to speak English, perhaps you're really saying that you want them to engage in the staff meetings, maybe you're feeling, well, they're being quiet during the staff meetings and they need to speak English. But
Mm.
really what's the problem is you just want them to speak. You want them to participate. You want them to be engaged. And then that brings me back to the administration reflecting on that, and then going back to the people that I'm working with, their staff, and saying, when do you feel the most pressure to have to speak English in the professional, during your professional day?
Mm.
What are the points of the day that are the most stressful for you? And generally, again, going back to patterns, the patterns are staff meetings, small talk. Those types of communications can be incredibly painful for people.
Well, I liked your value as a coach, especially in an organizational level. And so part of that also seems to me that you have to have some negotiation skills. Is that right?
Oh, definitely. Yes, yes, yes. You have to have very, very good negotiation skills, and it's not easy because, as we mentioned, coaches and consultants are there to support growth and to challenge the organizations and the individuals that work for them to change.
Mm.
So that is one of the hardest aspects, to get your foot in the door, to get people to see your value is challenging. I don't have all the answers for that, except from a sales point of view. The best thing you can do is provide your testimony from previously satisfied clients and or organizations, that say, this person helped our organization in the following ways. And then you have the proof. You might even want to bring along a short video of you hosting a coaching session, facilitating a coaching session so that they can see it, But
Yeah.
and I keep saying, by the way, stop saying, communication coach. So,
Laura Van Russo, you are both a communications coach and a confidence coach, and you have been my confidence cheerleader for these past 3 to 4 months. And so I so appreciate that. And the value that you give to the coaching industry is also of great value. And so thank you for this conversation. Any final words on bringing value to the organization as a communications coach?
the value to the organization is that if you have a staff and or an administration that has a deep understanding of the power of communication, they can then also appreciate the benefit of how that skill can further support their mission, can further appeal to their funders, and can, in general, make for a happier staff and workplace culture, right? Because we want people to stay. We don't want them to leave if they're good, especially. And so having a coach come in and provide that one-on-one work with your group of staff, or consultancy where you have someone come in and explain the technicalities behind laws or certain accommodations that can be made. What are you kidding? It's going to help your organization grow.
I appreciate that. This has been another weekly edition of Coach to Coach with Laura Van LaRusso and Dr. Keith McNally. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye.